So what's going on, guys? My name is Cheshire Automotive and welcome back to the vlog. Well, what more can I say? It's been well over a year since I posted a vlog to this channel, so I think it's only right that I do this quick little video to explain what's been going on and where we go from here. So let's get on in. So, what has been happening? Well, the honest answer to that question, it's been a big case of life getting in the way and not having as much time to do YouTube as I would have liked to have done. However, things have started to settle down now. I've got a bit more time in my hands and I can start doing YouTube again. I think it's a bit late for me to say Happy New Year at this point, given it is in fact September at the time of me recording this video. However, I hope everybody's having a great year thus far. What I'm going to do now is outline some of my personal favourite car moments from 2023, which I realise I really should have done either at the end of last year or the start of this year, but better late than never. Let's get on in and see what they were. The first order of business for 2023 was to get myself over to Porsche Wilmslow, where they had a 918 Spyder in the showroom, which was a great way to kick off the year. Courtesy of McLaren Manchester, we had the pleasure of seeing one of our first McLaren Arturas on the road, this particular example rocking a great custom wrap. Other highlights from January 2023 included the Aston Martin GT12, the Nissan R34 GTR Skyline, the Ferrari SF90 Stradale, the Ferrari 599 GTB, and to cap the month off, I had the pleasure of going to the British Motor Museum for the first time. I got off to a bit of a shaky start with February 2023 as there was a supercar driver meet on at my local Ferrari dealership, which I actually forgot about and ended up oversleeping when it was on. However, I did get to see a couple of the cars that did attend that meet, and they were the Ferrari LaFerrari Aperta and the Ferrari F430 Scuderia. Out on the road, some of my highlights were the Mansory-bodied Lamborghini Urus, my first look at the BMW M3 Touring, and the Aston Martin Vantage F1 Edition. Me and my fellow spotters had the pleasure of seeing many great cars in the course of February 2023, but I think it goes without saying that the personal highlight for us all was the sight of a pair of Mercedes AMG GT Black Series Project 1 editions, a sight which I don't think has been seen anywhere else in the UK or anywhere else in the world for that matter, so that's something we are all very grateful to have seen. Things were a little quiet on the car front in March of 2023, but it did have its highlights such as the Porsche 911 GT3 RS, the Ferrari 812 GTS, which was a tailor-made example, so one of one, and the Brabus Mercedes G-Wagon. I honestly don't think April 2023 could have been better. We kicked things off on the Easter weekend with the British GT races at Alton Park, where we got to see all the GT race cars race, of course. Plus, in the car park, we found cars such as the Ferrari 488 Pista Piloti and a Ferrari 812 Enlargo. But the absolute highlight from that particular event, and the golden goose of that event, was none other than the Pagani Huayra Roadster BC, a car which I honestly never expected to see in Cheshire, so certainly came as a great surprise when one of those turned up. Back in Audley Edge, the car action only continued with me getting to go in my favourite German sports car, which is none other than the BMW Z8. That's something I never expected to get to do, and it just goes to show you never know what will happen. Following on from my ride in the BMW Z8 Roadster, I had the pleasure of seeing none other than the one and only twin-turbo Lamborghini Aventador SV Roadster. And as an added bonus, a random Lexus LFA also turned up, so that's two pretty good cars that I saw within the space of a day, to say the very least. Unfortunately, on the Easter Monday, the weather did take something of a turn for the worse, so things were a little quieter on that day, but I was happy nonetheless to see none other than a Ferrari 458 Speciale. With all the excitement that happened over the course of the Easter weekend, you may think things would start to quieten down after that, but luckily for those of us that were in Audley Edge, they didn't, as we had the pleasure of seeing another Pagani on the road, this time in the form of a Huayra Roadster. That's something we're all very, very excited to see. But that wasn't the only hypercar that we had the pleasure of seeing through Audley Edge during April, as we also saw an MSO McLaren Senna and McLaren Senna Experimental Prototype number 1. In addition to the hypercars that I saw through Audley Edge, a few other personal highlights for me were the Ginetta G60, the tailor-made Ferrari 488 Pista Spyder, my first time seeing a McLaren 620R on the road, and for a laugh, I'm going to mention this one, and it is the car that had us all fooled, which was the Lamborghini Murcielago replica. Literally all of us at the time thought it was a genuine one, so congratulations to the owner there, you made a very convincing replica. We kick off the May highlights with this nice Porsche duo, starring the vintage Carrera RS and the modern day GT2 RS. Next up, we're into the times of celebrating the Diamond Jubilee, and Aston Martin Wilmslow marked the occasion with a very colour-appropriate lineup outside the showroom. Now this next one is a little bit of a tricky one, as it's something I don't really know a lot about, but it is something that I saw in my neck of the woods, and I know it is a pre-war Renault. It's something that I never saw on the road before, and it's something you certainly don't see every day. So if anybody out there knows anything about this car, go let me know in the comments below. The weekend after seeing the pre-war Renault, it was off to Stratford-upon-Avon for me and a few of my friends, where we saw cars such as a Ferrari Enzo, the Porsche 959 prototype, and a Ferrari 250 TDF. It's back to Cheshire with these next couple of highlights. With the weather starting to improve, it was time to kick off the local car meets again. A couple of highlights from those car meets were the Lamborghini Islero and the Porsche 911 Speedster. Next up, it was back to Alton Park for the annual Ferrari Challenge race event. Of course, I got to see all the Ferrari Challenge cars race at that event, but there were also plenty of Ferraris brought along by the Ferrari owners, including an Enzo, an 812 Competizione, and a 250 Lusso. It was actually one event after another that weekend, as the day after I went to the Ferrari Challenge event, it was off to Northamptonshire with me to go to Supercar Fest, which is actually where I recorded the video which kicked this channel off. If you haven't already watched that video, be sure to go and give it a watch. And the car event only continued through to the following weekend, as I next had the Cars and Caffeine charity event, as organised by my good friend Supercars in Manchester. That event attracted many great cars, but the personal highlights for me were the Do Dynamics bodied Ferrari F12 and the Lamborghini Aventador SVJ Roadster. After the Cars and Caffeine event, a sort of game of cat and mouse began with me, as the first Porsche 992 GT3 RS in the Northwest started getting about, and it took me a while before I actually got any pictures of it, but that particular day I saw it, I was too slow to get any proper pictures of it, and all I ended up with was a little proof shot of it. So nice that I got to see it, but it did take me a while before I got any proper pictures of it. On a more positive note, and one for the Bond fans out there, a car I was more fortunate in capturing on camera was none other than the actual Lotus Esprit driven by Sir Roger Moore himself in For Your Eyes Only. And continuing with the Bond car theme, another car that I was very happy to see was the Aston Martin DBS, finished in olive green and identical to the car driven by George Lazenby in On Her Majesty's Secret Service. For a Ferrari fan like myself, what better way to kick off the month of June than to go to one of the local Ferrari Owners Club meets, which is also where I recorded my introducing the Ferrari Rat Rod video. If you haven't already, be sure to go and give that a watch. Next up, it was off to Aston Martin Wilmslow to get my first look at the then new DB12, which I've also recorded as a YouTube short, so you can go and give that a watch if you like. After the DB12, the majority of my highlights came in the form of vintages and classics, such as the Lagonda Le Mans, the BMW E30 M3 Cabriolet, and the Lamborghini Countach. But something that wasn't a classic, but is always an absolute pleasure for me to see, is the tailor-made Ferrari 458 Speciale Aperta, my absolute dream car, so I'm always a very happy man whenever that car is around. I dare say the biggest moment of June 2023 was heading up to Edinburgh with a couple of my friends for the Gumball 3000 start line, where I had the pleasure of meeting Daily Driven Exotics and Matt Armstrong. I also had the pleasure of seeing many incredible cars, such as the Bugatti Chiron, the Koenigsegg Regera, the McLaren Senna. Honestly, I could go on forever and ever with all the cars that I saw over the course of that weekend. I then had the pleasure of pacing the rally from Edinburgh down to Ripley Castle in Yorkshire, which made for one heck of an adventure and one heck of a weekend. After the excitement of the Gumball 3000, I rounded off things in June with a visit to Alton Park for a Porsche day and getting to see classic cars such as the Aston Martin DB5, the Ferrari Dino, and the Lola T70. It's a classic kickoff for July 2023, as my first two highlights come in the form of a classic Chevrolet Camaro and the Mercedes 300 SL Roadster. In keeping with the Mercedes theme, my next highlight came in the form of the Mercedes AMG GTR Roadster, and in keeping with the German theme, the next highlight after that was the Porsche 992 GT3 RS. Something of a milestone that I reached in July 2023 was celebrating 7 years of car spotting. Now I did mark the occasion, but the day I did mark the occasion, it was absolutely throwing it down. But I was able to see one very special car. But I'm not going to tell you what that car is, but what I am going to do is show you one detail from that car, and I want to see if you can guess what car this is from. If you know what it is, let me know in the comments below. But one car I will say that I saw that day was a Mercedes CLK Black Series. Luckily the bad weather didn't continue, and I was able to enjoy some of the local car meets in good weather and see cars such as the Maserati Merak SS, the Plymouth Superbird and the Nissan R34 Skyline. Plus in Oldley Edge, highlights came in the form of the twin-turbo Lamborghini Huracan Performante Spider and the Lamborghini Huracan Technica. And to conclude July 2023, it was a trip back in time with a visit to Oulton Park for the annual Gold Cup event. If there's one thing I can say about August 2023 is that there was a great variety of cars that you just didn't see every day, with my highlights including the Shelby GT500 Mustang, a gated Ferrari F430, a Lancia Fulvia, a Puma GTE 1600, a Noble M12 GTO, a MG X-Power SV and a Maserati Sebring. But for a Ferrari fan like myself, the absolute #1 moment of August 2023 was seeing my first Ferrari SP3 Daytona on the road. I started off September 2023 with a trip to the annual Blenheim Salon Privé, where I was well and truly in my element with seeing more Lamborghini Murcielagos than I had ever seen in any location at any time before. Plus there was also my first look at the then new Lamborghini Revuelto. Jumping back to Oldley Edge the next day where the star car was the Bugatti Veyron. And then it was off on my travels again the following weekend with my first ever visit to the Goodwood Revival, where my personal highlight was the Ferrari 250 bread van. As fun as the travelling was, the remainder of my highlights come from Cheshire, and they were the Lamborghini Aventador SVs, the Ferrari SF90, the Ford GT, the Viola Parsippany Lamborghini Huracan STO, the first gen Lamborghini Aventadors, and the Renault Clio V6. It was my final car meet of the year in October 2023 with my visit to the Team Hot Sauce event in Knutsford, where they had everything from slammed Lambos to modern muscle cars, you name it, they probably had it at that event. Back in Oldley Edge, my personal highlights of October 2023 were the Mark IV Toyota Supra, the Aston Martin Signet, my first Rolls-Royce Spectre on the road, the Tesla Roadster, the Ferrari F430 Scuderia, the Porsche 911R, the BMW M3 CSL, and courtesy of my good friend the Alpina Addict, we had a convoy and then gathering of Alpinas in Oldley Edge. Another highlight which I'd like to mention, this one courtesy of Porsche Wilmslow, was my first look at the then new Porsche 911 Dakars. November 2023 proved to be something of a quiet one, as the weather starts to turn bad with the winter rolling in, and when that happens, the car scene does tend to get a little bit quieter. But that's not to say there weren't any gems, and in the case of November 2023, those gems were the BMW i8 First Edition Roadster, the E39 BMW M5, the Dodge Challenger SRT, and the Ferrari F430 Scuderia. Like with November, December 2023 proved not to be great in terms of the weather, but there were some highlights, and they were to see the annual Supercar Society charity drive come through Oldley Edge. There was a beautiful vintage Dodge pickup which I had the pleasure of seeing come through Oldley Edge, and then there was the final spot of 2023, which was the Lamborghini Aventador S, which brought the car spotting of 2023 to a close. So those were my highlights of 2023, and now comes the next order of business. So, where do we go from here? Well, if I'm honest, things are going to look a little messy on this channel for the foreseeable. I've got a couple of videos I want to get out after this one, and once those are live, it's going to be a case of getting through the backlog of content I've got built up and trying to get things back on track. But I will say when each of those videos was recorded, just to try and avoid any confusion. If you want to stay tuned for those upcoming videos, be sure to smash the subscribe button. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to smash that like button. Go let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Link in the description to my Instagram, and I shall see you on the next one. See you then.